Hi, my name is Glory. I'm a second year student studying at the Bartlett School of Architecture in London, originally from Hong Kong.
And I'm Shan, a second year architecture student, and I'm into musicals, oil painting, movies, and embarrassingly into self help and Richie biscuits.
You're listening to Designing Thoughts with the Archigals, a podcast where we talk about working and creativity, living well, the human condition with relationships, and life experiences. Before we get into the podcast, I would just like to ask for a small favor. It would mean a lot to us if you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or leave a comment on our YouTube channel just to let us know how you feel about the podcast and other topics you'd be interested in hearing in. Hi everyone, welcome back to our podcast. I'm your host Glory and this is my co-host Shan. So today we're going to be talking about a topic I think most people can relate to. It's going to be about perfectionism and just the pressure to do well in school or in life in general. So we hope this will be relatable to you in some way. So I think we can start off with just talking about our own experiences and then probably move on to our thoughts about how to relieve some of these thoughts in life. And hopefully that'll be interesting. So yeah, we can just start off by talking about our experiences since childhood with the pressure to do well, probably from school, Yanshan.
Yeah, I think we're both like pretty high achievers,
Mm-hmm.
so would be pretty similar. But anyway, in primary and secondary school, I went to like a pretty competitive local school, but it was quite competitive. Actually, secondary school, I went to a private school, but it was the
In
local syllabus in
in
Malaysia.
Malaysia, yeah.
Yeah. So in Malaysia, private school means you have to pay fees to go to the school because in the UK I know it's different. But anyway, so I guess like in primary school to secondary school I was like pretty smart and good at school. I was always in like the top 10 in the year because they would rank me. They have rankings every year. And
Mm-hmm.
then being smart is like was like my thing. Being good at school was my personality. I was like the one who was good at school. And I don't know, it's like I did a lot. I did enjoy like co-curricular activities, like for example, I was like head cheerleader for Yellow House, and then I was like a librarian prefect, which is like a kind of nerdy thing to be, but like it's like quite cool because you get to like take care of the library, which I really liked. And then yeah, so I was like, I guess I was pretty all-rounded, but I wasn't like a sporty person, and I wasn't really good at sports, but I was good at school, and I really liked having other friend like I liked having a friend group who was also good at school, which I realize now is like quite discriminatory. Like sometimes there was actually no basis for us to be friends other than that we were both good at school.
Oh.
And then I feel like it was because like it was drilled into me since young that like I had to get into a good uni, and
Mm-hmm.
they thought that like the only way would be like to be good at school. And I feel like because I was so pressured to be good at school, I didn't really like find my own passion. I just like thought studying was enough and that would be enough like to as a personality.
Yeah, actually, it's really interesting that you say like being smart was like your main personality trait. Do you just, I don't know, like why did you sort of identify that? Or how did you treated that as like your main personality trait? Like you just like being known for being smart in a way, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess because I thought that like that was enough of a personality for me because like people know me as like the one who's good at school. That's
Mm-hmm.
enough. I didn't have to like try very hard either. I guess there's something else I should add. Like I didn't have to try super hard to be great at
Mm-hmm.
school because like and therefore like I think until now I don't really know how to try hard at a lot of things.
Humble
Oops.
flights there. Yeah, I think definitely I can relate to you in a lot of ways. As you said, like we're both very like high achievers in school. So I think it's the same for me. For primary school, I went to a very local school in Hong Kong. So it's the same with you. Like there was a ranking system, so it was like quite competitive. And yeah, this is really something I'm not proud of. But if I get lower than 80%, I think I will cry in school, which is something I'm really not proud of when I look back at because I remember my sister always telling me that, oh, why do you always cry? Like, it's not a big deal. But to me, it really was a big deal because I think at the time, like, being good at academics was like all I knew. And then you have Asian parents also going, like, well, if you get into top 10 ranking, then we will, like, reward you with this. So it was like always a drive for you to like do well in school and like get very high rankings. And it's kind of also, that was just the environment that we were in. Like parents would compare kids. Like every time after like a teacher parents day meeting, like parents will come up to you and ask like, oh, what ranking did you get? And then like
No way. The parents.
they like my friends' parents, they will come up to me and ask like what ranking I got, and then after I tell them, they'll be like, oh, you should probably like help my daughter a little bit, you know, she only got this ranking. So it was quite toxic. I feel like I don't think this is healthy in any way for the kids. And despite now that I criticize this, at the time I think I was quite toxic too, because I would compare my grades with my friends. Like
Dude,
we would
same.
make we would make a table, and then I
Same.
would put like, yeah, oh, do you do that?
Like
I would
like
have my
before
name.
like before the report card comes out, because you want to know everyone's marks. So you put down
Yeah,
like everyone's marks for every subject. Oh, so
yeah,
horrible.
yeah. I did that on like results day. I would like put my name on like a column and my friend's name on another column. It's actually my best friend in primary school. Like her name on one column, and then like all the subjects on the side, and we'll like put marks on it and see who won for this round. I don't think it was healthy. You know, like,
No, but it's crazy. I said I was doing it until secondary school, and it got worse in
yeah.
secondary school because like I wouldn't even tell them that I was writing down their marks. I would just
Oh.
find out and write it down anyway.
Okay, that was pretty bad because I was doing it out in the open. Like I actively was like competing with her, so it wasn't as bad. But I still don't feel like it was healthy. You know, like now we look back, because I'm still really good friends with her. We just look back at those sheets and like laugh. You know, so it was funny. But like now that I look back at it, it really wasn't healthy. Yeah. So I just felt like, same with you. It was like the one thing that defined me, like being good at school, because I think it was so drilled into like as little kids, like into our heads, that this is like what we're supposed to do. So yeah. And to be fair, because in Hong Kong it's such a big culture to be good at school, so actually I would say 99% of the kids in our class got extra tutoring after school
Oof.
to be, you know, improve their grades, you know. Okay, I guess this is also a little bit of a
Flex.
brag, I guess. Yeah,
Did you
flex, to say
not?
that I didn't get tutoring. So it goes the same with you for saying that. I know, I think I tried hard, but on a scale, like I think some people definitely tried harder than me. So I think in a way it wasn't like, sometimes I think about that and I think, oh, it's kind of unfair, you know. Yeah. And then moving into secondary school, yeah, I went to a private school that was like international, and then it's the same as you. Like I think I just liked being known for like being smart, being in like the set ones, like the highest grade classes for like, each subject. Like I liked being in those classes, you know, just to prove that I was smart, you know. And yeah, and the other thing with like the extracurricular activities, like you mentioned, I joined basically all the clubs and societies. I feel like I was the person in my year that did the most extracurricular activities. Like apart from being, I was like, oh, apart from being good at grades, I was in drama, I was in choir, I was in music, I was doing concerts, I was in like art, I was doing maths competitions, I was, yeah, basically everything. And
It's quite
like I guess,
irritating.
yeah,
I'd
I
be
guess
very
in some,
irritated as you if you were
me,
like my classmate.
you were like, I need to be better than her.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for being honest though. But yeah, so I think in a way it was almost to say that, you see, I can do all these things and I can still be good at school and academics. Like I feel like in some way it was an unhealthy way of like defining my worth to myself and other people, even though I don't think they care. I think it was more towards myself to like prove that
Mm.
I was worth something. But looking back, I think I thoroughly enjoyed like all the experiences I had in like the different activities I joined. So I don't regret it. I think it was a good experience. And I think I managed my time quite well. So I think in a way it was good. And a bit of a
Yeah.
flex, I guess. But yeah.
I guess it also goes back to like school being not that difficult. So it was like you want to fill your time with other things to, I don't
I don't
know,
know
have things to
how,
do.
is that a controversial thing to say, because maybe like other people, you know, like who I guess not in a similar position as us, or like in an environment like us, like, because I actually have some friends that struggled and I'm always happy to help them, but sometimes it always makes me sad, and I look at myself and I'm like, am I really trying that hard? Maybe this is also why
Yeah.
I wanted to do extra stuff, like to prove that with this capacity, like I can do other things. Like this is me trying hard, you know. But then when I look at some of my friends who are gets tutoring, and they're still struggling with their grades, sometimes I feel really bad. Like I feel almost guilty that I'm like performing well without spending as much time on studying and the materials. And yeah, it just makes me feel a bit bad. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I think I did feel a bit bad. Also because like I was, yeah, definitely like among my friends the most chill when it came to exams. Okay, not the most chill, one of the more chill people when it came to exams. I'll just be like, yeah, it's exam. Like before GCSEs I'll be studying, but like not killing myself studying.
Yeah. GCSE
Yeah.
was fun, I think. It was like a good break into
Okay.
summer. Okay,
Uh,
sorry. I feel
okay,
like it's
but I was bad at sports. So I feel like that was
mm,
like I can be good at school and good at com societies, but I was bad at sports. And also I had not had like my glow up and I didn't go out. So I was like, yeah, so it's fine. I'm like a nerd. That's my aesthetic.
yeah, I guess I don't know if I can say the same thing. I think I just wanted to be all rounded like you. I did sports. I think I was captain for badminton.
Oh
So
my
yeah, I think
days.
I sorry, this became like a
Bragging
bragging
session.
sorry, like no, literally no hate to anyone, like not trying to make anyone feel bad. I think we're just having a discussion between us about like our experiences. Yeah, I guess actually thinking about like your thoughts about like not having the glow up and like some parts you think you weren't as good. Did you try to compensate that in uni? I think that's like I guess we can move on to uni and like our experience because I think it's very very different compared to like our primary and secondary school experience. I feel like you were trying to make up for some of it in uni. Like correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I feel like even choosing this course was like okay, this is gonna sound really bad, but it was like I wanted to do something which like I knew was gonna be like very different from normal school and also
Choosing
therefore
architecture.
yeah, therefore had to be like it was like pretty challenging as well.
Mm.
Just because it was different. And yeah, and also I guess I tried to be different by like because I changed secondary schools. I changed a different school for A levels. So I think when I went to the new school, I like started doing art and then I was like started like doing like exercising more and doing glow up stuff because I wanted to be like a more holistic person instead of
Mm.
like just academic.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think so because I think for us like both of us picking architecture was definitely like a I wouldn't say non-traditional, but it was like very I think when you say this to parents, they think of architecture as like a quite I don't know what's the adjective to say, like it's an acceptable path to take for a university course. But I think for Bartlett, like Bartlett School of Architecture's course, it's just very different. I think when you look at when you compare it to like other architecture courses, just because it's so creative and imaginative in a way. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me, like going into uni, was how the subject was being marked because essentially for both of us we picked a subject that was graded like very subjectively. It's all
Mhm.
down to the tutors that we have and there's like no absolute measure of what is good compared to say other subjects like maths and science. And sometimes my brain goes into this place where I really want to do well in a measurable way, you know, because with maths and science it was like always you have a right or wrong answer, whereas with architecture and like creative stuff, art in general, there's no right answer. So for me sometimes it was hard, and this is I'm probably gonna get roasted by some of my friends and even you, but sometimes during the course I'm like I want to do exams, like I want to know what's
Dude,
right
same.
and what's wrong.
I wish there was a maths component because I miss it
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like beyond for that, like I also find it very difficult now to because like how I feel like I'm graded now is by what I think is good. Like if I think it's good, I have to argue to my tutors that it's good and prove to them that it's good. And I have to like
Mm,
show my work instead of just like I don't know, memorize stuff that I can memorize and so and I need to like my things as well. I feel like before all the time, like from primary and secondary school, I wouldn't say I loved any of my subjects a lot.
mm.
I just
Love
knew that it was
doing
right.
well in them. You
Yeah,
love
that's true.
doing well in them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think like even now, like I have to actually like it for it to be good, and that's quite hard for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. At the same time, I think this makes me think of the fact that like architecture because of the way it's marked. In a way, I think it's good for us because we're just used to being, as in we're accustomed to like doing well in like exams and like getting the right answers. Like as long as we spend time and effort in learning the syllabus or the material, like we believe in ourselves that we can do well with retaining information. Because mostly I think exams is just about how well do you retain information in your head and like say it out basically. But with architecture is really about the process, and I think in some way it's good for us to train this part of ourselves that's not really about getting good grades and like for somebody to just put a label on us and say this is good because you got it correct. Because there's so many things in like real life and when you graduate basically in life, that's there's no right or wrong answer. You know, it's all down to how you feel and like the choices you make. So I think in a way it's good for like prepping us because there's no definitive right or wrong answer. It's just all about the discussions you have with your tutors. So I think in a way it's good for us, you know.
Yeah. But I feel like I try to compensate by like doing other things outside, which have very concrete um like measurements. So for example, joining clubs and societies and like applying for internships because I feel like not that I'm falling behind my peers outside architecture, but like I feel like I need to prove my worth to people who are not doing the course. Therefore, I need to like get the same internships which they can get and like be in clubs and stuff, which they can also be in,
Yeah,
which is
I
quite
think in a
bad.
way. Well, I mean, I think in a way, like with uni, like the way it's so different from, say, secondary school is that everyone in secondary school who's in the same year, like, all know each other. And even if you take different subjects, you still know each other because you're all in the same cohort. Whereas in university, because the university is so big, there's like 4,000, 5,000 people in, say, maybe a year. Like, you can't possibly know and everyone that's in that year. So it's hard for everyone to know exactly where you stand unless they do your course. And when you interact with people outside, I guess maybe for both of us, it's hard to accept the fact that they have no sort of vague idea of like how we're doing in school. Like, I guess the thing that we identify as being good in school is like no longer there for us. It's not the first thing people know about us. So I guess for you and maybe me, like the way to compensate that is to join more societies and clubs to prove that we're a well-rounded person. Like we have all these things going for us and we can handle it despite doing like quite an intense course. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
what goes through your mind.
Yeah, I think I think yeah, it's quite similar because it's like to prove to people, it's still to prove to people that like I have worth, even though nobody cares, like literally no one cares that much.
Yeah,
Like
so I
people
think
who
it's
are
mostly
friends
to.
with, like yeah, but people who are friends, I don't think like, oh, they joined so many clubs and they got so many internships, I must be friends with them. So
Yeah, exactly. And I think I think for me, like, I tried to tell myself to slow down a bit with the clubs and societies front. Because in the beginning of first year, I joined like 3 to 4 clubs and societies, which is just insane. I don't even know
mm,
how I managed my time, but I joined so many events from each each club. Like I would go to rehearsals for like dance and like live music. It was crazy. I don't know how I managed it. And then afterwards, I think once the group project started, I started to slow down and really like put my attention on the course mostly. And then I think it was good to just slow down and like really focus on the course and like the people I've met inside, like friends, including you and other people. And actually, this makes me remember the time when you were in like was it one society? I think it was like one like Malaysia society, and you were like
yeah.
struggling so much to get content out because you were like on the art team with like the social media front stuff,
Yeah,
and
I
you
was doing
yeah
it on a school trip and I was like, ah, I cannot, I'm so tired.
yeah, I remember you were just like so done with the task you had to do, and like you every time you do it, you were like complaining. You're like, oh, why do I have to do this? Like they're just making me correct this for no reason. And then I was like, do you even like what you're doing? You were like, yeah, it's fine. And then it goes on complaining. And then I was like, bro, if you're really like tired and you have so much on your plate with architecture already, you can just take a break. Like I feel like you've done quite a lot already. And you were like, no, but it's fun. Like I like it. And then I said, okay. It's quite
Yeah, I
funny.
mean, I think it's like a hallmark, which is like pushing yourself to do good at stuff, even though you don't really want to. Which is, I think, like for example, now my course, I'm like, yeah, I have to get a first class honors,
Oh
because that's like the
yeah.
only metric that I have of
It's
like
it's
how I'm
really
doing.
true. Yeah. I don't know if other people think I'm pretty sure a lot of people think like us, like in our course, but yeah, I think in the maybe probably in the very beginning, like I was always geared towards like, oh I want to get it first. Like because yeah, like you said, it's the only metric that can define like how good I am. Because with university, you don't tell people what grades you got. It's not like, oh, I got A star, or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
you tell people I graduated with a first, and that's like the thing that labels you being a good student. So we're just so geared towards like having that label like underneath us. Like we want to show that to people when we tell them that we
Yeah.
graduated. You know, and yeah, I think it's also the same like in secondary school when end of year we would get a prize. I would always be like, I want to be the one to get the art prize.
Yeah.
It was always like that. But the thing is, I think like because we had a bit of growing in university, like while we were abroad, and I did lots of thinking. And then I think it just made me realize the fact that it's really not that important. Easier said than done, obviously. But it just made me realize that, especially for a course like architecture, when I was talking to one of my friends, like he was telling me how ultimately the most important thing from architecture is really about your portfolio. It's not really about the labels that the tutors put on you. Because when you go to like companies to do an interview, the most important thing they look at is your portfolio. And because it's so subjective, what tutors may think is not good, your employer might think it's good. So it's really just down to like the portfolio. It's really not as simple as, say, I think if you do like a math degree, first class would probably be if you get the highest mark. Like that makes sense to me. But the thing is, I think for architecture, because it's such a creative subject, like it's really hard to define what's good and what's not. I think in some ways, yes, you can, but ultimately, when a lot of people's work is all good, it's really hard to just, you know, base
Mhm.
that on one label.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think like the more I'm doing this course, the more I'm trying to make myself be okay with the fact that like even if you don't get a first, it's okay because it's really down to what the tutors think of your work.
Yeah.
And it can be vastly different. Even if
Yeah.
you look at like great artists or like great architects, like they can fail years or like school, doesn't mean that their work is not good, not revolutionary. You know what I mean? So I think I'm just trying to prep myself to be more okay with the fact that I might just not reach my target. And the
Yeah.
other thing I wanted to say is that it's also very prominent to me in secondary school was that when I always wanted to get a prize at the end of year, it was always that anticipation of, am I gonna get it? Like I really want to get it. But then when I actually get it, it really just fades in like 3 seconds. Like and then I move on to the next thing. I think it's really prominent for like a lot of perfectionists. Like they're always working towards like a certain goal, but then once they reach it, it's really not that great. It doesn't appears to be as great to as they anticipated when they actually reach it, and then they just put it to the back of their heads and then they move on to the next big thing that they want to focus on, and it's like a repeated cycle that goes on and on and on and on. So yeah, I'm just telling myself to be more okay with the process of creating work for the course like architecture and the portfolio and not focus that much on the end product because it's the process that counts.
Yeah. That's called I was actually quite relevant. I was reading this blog called it's called a mimetic trap. So a mimetic trap is when multiple people striving when you strive towards the same goal, then you often rank yourself by progress within your peer group. So like for example, you wanting to win the art prize, but then so instead of having an absolute goal, which is like being good at art, you have a relative goal, which is like I want to be better than my friends. Okay, not friends, but my peers. And then like after that, you always find yourself unhappy because you feel like even if you win, you feel like you've lost because like the reason why you won is because you like push other people down, I guess, to be like the best, and that's like what gives you the like the sense of achievement rather than like you actually being good at something. So yeah,
Oh, that's interesting. So
it's
it's
called
like it's all relative in a way. I don't know. I never really think about, as in I think there's two ways of excelling, right? Like either you make sure other people do worse than you or you do well than all of them, right? I think I was
yeah,
very focused on the second one, but I guess in a relative sense, like say like in a school environment or like the cohort in your year, I guess that makes sense in a way because
yeah,
even if you're good, you're ranked like highest in this year doesn't mean you're gonna be ranked the highest if you were in another year.
yeah. Or like
Yeah.
if you had done the same work that the same way that you got the but you didn't get the prize, would you have still felt you would have still felt upset even if you had done the exact same work.
What do you mean?
So like what the thing which makes you happy or motivated is like getting the prize rather than making the work. Because like if you had done like the same art
Oh.
like coursework, but then like for example someone else in your year had gotten a prize, you would have felt like disappointed.
Oh. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Because, yeah, I think for us, we're just also focused on the actual label and the actual grade that we get. It's not really about the product. Like, obviously, in a way, we're happy with what we achieved. Like, I can look back at it and say, oh, the process was amazing. And, like, I can do really well. But I think ultimately it's always going to be connected with the fact that, I did this project, it's really good, and it gave me this label, it gave me this prize. I think
Yeah.
that's always the thing with. That's the thing. I think even with this year, like, the like summer show, like I would see projects on the website, and honestly, a lot of the architecture project looks great, and then I would see a lot of people getting prizes, and then that like them like tagging the prizes they got like on their Instagram stories, and I'll look at them and I'm like, oh, what if I don't do that well next year? That's
Um,
like a really fear I have, which it's really not. It really shouldn't be a fear, and I'm trying to not have that fear, but it's really ingrained in me based on like what happened in the past. Yeah, and then sometimes I look at them and I'm like, yes, you can say your project is great, and the process was amazing, and it was all worth it in the end because you got the prize. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I really want to jump out of that. Yeah, I really want to jump out of
Yeah.
that thinking pattern, and it's really hard because what if I do get a prize next year? That means that I can say all of the stuff I want to say, but I'm not actually living it because
Yeah.
I never struggled with like not doing well. That sounds like such a first world problem, but yeah, but you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like,
But
yeah.
how do you think you can get out of it then? Like for me, I feel like one big factor for getting out of it was the fact that I failed to get into a lot of the unis that I applied for. And then I was like, whoa, I'm not as good as I thought. So I better have like other things I'm good at, or like at least enjoy, I don't know, enjoy the process since I'm
Yeah,
stuck in this course.
I think I just really need to fail. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds
True.
like I don't think that this conversation must sound very weird from the outside, but I think in some ways like we just really need to like I think failing in no matter what category, it's just really important because it's just such a big like wake up call. I think when you fail and then you really take the time to like evaluate, and I think I've had the privilege of failing in other of life's categories. Like, well, we can talk about like the friendship thing we had, the friendship topic in like the other episode we had. That was like one of the areas that I failed, obviously. But I think I didn't have the privilege of like really failing in academics, which is really a first world problem at this point. You never hear people talking about this actually. I never heard anyone talking about this of saying I didn't have the privilege to fail. But I think it's really like yeah, it's probably something I will have to experience some time in my life. Yeah, so I think I'm just having this thinking process is actually already so valuable to me, and I've like trying to prep myself for failure, because no matter you failing or not, like it's still going to be a learning experience. So yeah, even if I can't jump out of that circle, at least I'm thinking about it, and I think that's already a good starting point. Rather than being completely oblivious to the fact that I'm just doing well, and like it doesn't matter. Like I don't have to consider anything else or any other people because I'm just doing well in my bubble. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it's good that like you try to holistify your life by like doing other things then like because I feel like when I went to uni, even though doing first getting a first was like one of my big priorities, I also knew that like going to uni is like the place where you like go out, make friends for life, and then like
Mm.
improve yourself and change, and it's like the best years of your life. And I think I really felt pressure for it to be like among the like to make it the one like really worth it for me.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. I think does this go back to the whole thing of like people hyping up university? Like they say it's gonna be the best time in your life. You're gonna have your parents are not gonna be there to control you, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. Yeah, so I think people just hype it up a lot, and then it feels like we need to get the most out of university. And obviously, for us, technically, half of our university life is gone due to COVID. So we can say we missed out on a lot. But at the same
Yeah,
time, like we gained something from like doing remote learning,
that's
just
true.
missed out a lot of like personal in person activities we would have had with building connections with other people, obviously. But yeah, sometimes I do think that, especially with the whole clubbing thing. Remember how you accused me of not liking clubbing? Like I think in a way it was like I was thinking like is there something wrong with me? Like missing out,
Oh, did you
But
actually feel that? That's quite bad. Oops.
no, in a way, like a little bit. It's not really that bad, but I think mostly I kind of accepted that's who I am, and I came to terms with the fact that, it just might not, like, it's just not my thing. I can build meaningful connections in another way.
Yeah,
So yeah, like it's not a big thing. I think in the beginning, I was like, I should do this, like, at least once. So
that's
didn't I
true.
tell you I went out once during
Yeah,
Freshers Week?
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely hated it. Sorry for a very controversial opinion. I don't know if it is, but I didn't enjoy it. But at least I can say I tried, So
yeah.
yeah, did miss out, I guess.
Mm. Something else I feel pressured to do in uni is like to um work out and look a certain way because I feel like
Really?
yeah, I do because I feel like people around me like really it might also be a lockdown thing to be fair, that like
Mm.
everyone is like, oh, this is the time for focusing on yourself and work on your body, blah 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 blah. But I don't know. But I think I'm less influenced by that now. Like,
Mm.
I don't know. That's
Is
one
it
thing
is
that
it a
also comes
uni
to.
thing, or maybe it's, I guess it's a life thing in general? Like, I think this is like the part where we feel like we have to be ticking all the boxes in life. So this is like where
Yeah.
perfectionism kind of like covers our entire head and like our life, like the umbrella of
Oh,
perfectionism.
that's true.
Yeah, and then we feel
I
like
have
we
to be
have
the
to.
perfect person.
Yeah, I mean, this all stems from like childhood of like needing to do well in school, right? Because of the whole ranking system, and then like this is our duty as a child and like
Yeah.
a daughter and like a student, and then it kind of transforms into this whole thing of, but then now we're no longer just a kid, like we're a student, we're also like a young adult, like we should
Yeah.
be experiencing life to the fullest, and like we need to like try to strive to have the perfect life, and
Yeah.
then I guess this is where all these come in, like you want to look good in a certain way because everyone's like saying that, and then social media, and then also like just going out and like making a lot of friends, like uni, and yeah,
Yeah.
so it's just kind of.
Wanting to have it all. It's quite bad, I think, because I was talking to my friend about this that day, and then she was like, "Yeah, I want to like, so because now she has a job lined up for after uni. It's like, now I have the job, so next year I'm gonna start dating, and then I'm gonna get the boyfriend, and then I'll be like
Oh,
happy." Then I was like, "Oh,
she
that's
has a whole structure
uh,
and a timetable for her life.
yeah, yeah."
Oh.
Then I was like, "That's cool, cool," but I know that I do that as well, but I think
Mentally.
when she says it out loud, then I realize like, oh, it's quite dangerous to have that list actually because you'll never be happy.
Yeah, because one way or another, things are not gonna fall according to your plan. Like it's
And
like 100% guaranteed. It's
and even
not.
if it does, like you might not be like 100% happy. In fact, you most
Yeah,
definitely won't be.
it's
So,
kind of like the Midnight Library, like our
yeah.
previous, sorry, 2 episodes ago. Yeah, it's just you won't, and yeah, I think it's good to mentally plan, I guess, like to a certain extent. Like you can kind of map out your life and see where you are in life, and then it's kind of like having a bucket list, right? You want to tick things off, like this is what I want to do before I die, or something like that. But
Mm,
yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't really narrow it down to like next year I'm gonna start dating. Like it seems
mm,
too much for me. Like what if you don't meet someone in the next year?
yeah,
Then your plan fails. Like your entire life collapses because this one thing didn't match up the timeline of your life.
yeah,
So I think your friend needs to be open to the idea that it's just not gonna go the way that she planned for her life.
yeah, yeah. But I feel like I'm also pretty perfectionistic like that. Like for example, even throughout primary and secondary school, I was like, okay, I need to have like my girl gang of friends. So I
Mm.
always strive to do that, even though like now looking back, I don't think I clicked with all of them
Oh wow, really?
like equally. So then like there
Okay.
was no point in me having a girl gang of friends other than like it made me feel like cool. That's kind of lame point as well. So yeah, like
Yeah.
sometimes doing these things just for to have it as like a tick box is quite bad.
Mm. I think you were kind of. I remember you telling me that it was kind of the same thing when you went to uni, right? Like you felt like you have to like make friends and then like tick the box of
Yeah,
like making lots of friends and stuff like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
that
then
is true.
now, are you still? Well, I think. Well, I hope that like that
It's
idea
better.
diminished. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like if I don't want to hang out with someone, then I just won't. Much better than before.
Okay. Okay, good. Like you're more in tune with yourself. Yeah, for me I think it's more about just making quality friends. I guess in that way I feel like I'm more in tune with myself. Like I never really lie to myself about like being friends with someone that I'm not actually that like I don't click with, you know? Yeah, so I think it's just about like having a I guess in a way my expectation with friends in university I think this is also due to movies, you know, like they're like, oh my god, I have a best friend from university. And then
Mm,
that kind of placed an expectation on me to say that, oh, I need to have a really good friend in university, otherwise I must have failed.
mm,
Like my social skills must have like failed me. Yeah,
mm.
and then yeah, but I guess like I will never know like what if I failed that expectation because I guess I have you like talking to me on this podcast. So I guess in a way I tick that box. But I think even if I didn't meet you, I didn't meet friends. I think like I needed to be okay with the idea of like just not meeting someone that I really really clicked with. You know, like a friend soulmate.
Mm,
You know,
mm.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think you're right about the movie point. Like now I avoid movies which have like teen or high school romances
Oh, it's very
because
cliche.
because I didn't have one. Oh, this is quite bad. I feel like the reason why I avoid it is because like I didn't have one. So I don't want to have to be shown evidence of people who have had that experience because I failed that tick box. Oh, that's quite
Oh,
bad.
is it kind of like High School Musical where it's like everything is so nice, and then people are like, "This is not what high school is like."
Yeah, even now like I don't watch like Never Have I Ever or like Kissing Booth. I feel like part of the reason why I don't watch Kissing Booth is because it's like a romance that happens in school, and she goes to like fucking Yale or something. Sorry, I saw. She goes to like Yale or something, and I'm like, what the hell? That's
She went to
ridiculous.
Harvard. She went to
That's
Harvard.
even worse.
Yeah, I think they just place a lot of like unrealistic expectations on like teens and like young adults, you know? And sometimes I look at the movies and I'm like, that's not what real life is. But because it's so ingrained, like those cliches are so ingrained in our heads, like it almost makes us feel like if we didn't tick that box, we failed. And like for perfectionists like us, if we like failed a certain part of life, then our life is like not perfect, then we can't be seen as someone who has like that value. You know, we can't. That's why we're so constantly finding ways to prove ourselves. Which, yeah, I guess in a way it's bad. So I guess the
Yeah.
media is somewhat at fault for that. I suppose.
Yes. So now I guess we can talk about like what you can do to or what you have been doing to like change your mindset about it to like escape the rat race of achievement and like the bad cycle of like being of relying on external praise and validation.
Yeah, I think a really huge part of this was just mostly my self blame. Like I always, I think that's another thing with like perfectionists is that I always blame myself and say that oh if I just tried a little harder, then I would have gotten this. I would have gotten this like validation from other people. I would have gotten this prize, this label. But then the thing is, I guess we talked about this, but it's just that there's too many external factors that could influence the outcome of whatever comes out. So
Mm.
it's really no point in blaming yourself other than it really decreases your morale and motivation that could have made your work better in the first place. So I'm trying to just like I guess acknowledge times when I'm like self-blaming and realizing like even if I do this it's not helping. It's kind of like saying I'm really scared for next year for my final year of architecture because I'm scared that I'm going to do really bad and I'm going to sometimes I would talk to myself in a really destructive way where I'll say oh your work is not even that good anyway so you know why are you trying sort of like that it's really self-destructive and then I think I'm just trying to learn to be more present and acknowledge the times when I'm saying those type of things to myself and I'm like it doesn't saying that doesn't help you do better it doesn't change the outcome of anything it only just makes you feel worse and if you feel worse your work will probably end up being worse than what it could have been if you started off with a positive mindset and believing that you can do well in the first place. I think that's one of the really big things that I really need to improve on
But
for
I feel
next
like
year.
that's quite it's true most of the time, but I feel like sometimes it doesn't apply to me because I feel like sometimes when I talk to myself in a shitty way, I actually end up doing better, which is a very bad mindset to have. But it's like if I don't feel like I'm failing, then I won't try. So I have to feel
Oh,
like I'm
really?
failing or like drowning to like swim. If not, I
Oh,
just won't swim.
that's really interesting because I think for me, like once I start the self-destructive thought process, it goes really in a spiral, like downwards, and then I can't
Okay.
rescue myself. I can't help my drowning self. So, yeah, but I guess I think this goes with the whole like a certain amount of pressure is good because you can't do well when you have so much pressure that you crack, but you can't do well if you have no pressure at all. I think it's about finding the sweet spot for the both of us and finding at what pressure point do we work the best. Maybe for you it's like reaching more pressure of like actually reaching your breaking point. Maybe that would be your sweet spot. And then for me maybe it would be a bit lighter towards the less stress point.
Yeah.
Actually to be fair, I think a lot of the stress is really put on us by ourselves as well because technically if you don't put stress on yourself there's no stress actually because the tutors can't do anything to you other than saying this is the deadline. Like they can't put stress on you. You're the one who's putting stress on yourself. So I
Yeah.
think it's about finding how much stress you should put on yourself, and
Yeah.
then yeah. So maybe in a way for you, like it works if you talk, I guess, worse than me to yourself, but it doesn't work. I think in a certain way, like I would be like, oh look, you chilled for the whole day yesterday. You should probably get some work done. I think that's probably the most I can go. Like I can't talk that bad to myself. Maybe it works for you. I don't
Okay.
know how it works.
I think it's different because I am a more relaxed person in general. Like my base,
Definitely.
oh, I think it's like the baseline. Like my baseline is very low for like how much effort I can put in. And whereas your
Oh,
baseline, like even your lowest effort is quite
hi.
high effort. Yeah. But I think how you
Okay.
put it is right, like finding the sweet spot, for
Mm,
each of us.
yeah. Yeah. I think that was a
Yeah.
good point. Probably good for other people just to yeah, find a way like to talk to yourself. Like if you find being destructive doesn't work, then you should probably be nicer to yourself. Which is actually thing I think I discovered this year. Like when I talk nicer to myself, I feel a lot better in my abilities.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think maybe for you or like other people who are normally chill, you just have to like be the one who's there to like talk to yourself because when we were students in like secondary or like primary school, there was always a figure of authority telling us what to do. But like once you're in university or like after university, you're really on your own. So you have to be the one that controls how much you talk to yourself in like an authoritative voice. I think.
Yeah, that's true. I
Yeah.
think another thing that would really help would be like what you mentioned earlier, like enjoying the process, which sounds very cheesy and like cliche,
Overused.
but it is
Yeah.
true. I think even for like if I were, because I was talking to my friend who like does engineering and computer science, and she's like, yeah, like I'm like, oh, do you enjoy coding or do you just like seeing the result come out? She's like, yeah, like I enjoy solving the problem and like seeing the pieces come together and like so even for not it's not just like an artistic thing to enjoy the
Mm,
process. It
yeah.
applies to like really everything.
Yeah, definitely. I think the process is just so important because I think the result is just there for like a split second, but the process of like what happened is really what stays and resonates with you and other people when you tell the story. So yeah, the
Mhm.
process I think is just important. Yeah, and I think enjoying the process is just important. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's also something like finding something that you really enjoy the process, like something that you think is very valuable, which is kind of the next point of like finding what takes up your headspace. Because
mm,
I think a lot of the times, like when we're under stress, we kind of just like look for other things to do that's like not necessarily that productive. I'm not saying it's not good to take a break and like do more relaxing things, but like sometimes it kind of takes over our heads. You know, do you feel the same way?
I think so because I am quite a person who's influenced by other people and external validation. So, for example, I've been cutting back. This is so cliche as well, but like using Instagram less. But then like because I use it less, then I don't feel like so much peer pressure to be having fun or to like show that I'm having fun and to
Mm.
instead like focus on myself. So instead of like letting toxic things take up my headspace, like for example like being compared to like relatives like or stuff like that, I would just focus on like what I find interesting instead, which
Yeah.
I think like things like podcasts and reading doing like online courses actually help quite a lot in doing that, because then you like realize what you actually like talking about. And I feel like a good measure of this is like if you don't need to show people that you're doing something, therefore then it's something that you enjoy doing. Like even if you tell someone about something, it's because you actually want them to know the thing that you just learned, instead of like, oh, did you know that I did this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, that's really true. I think that's a really good measuring point. I actually never thought about that, which makes a lot of sense, to be honest, because once you're internally satisfied, you don't really need to have the need to show off to other people, you know? So I think
Mm,
that's a really good measuring point. Actually, going off of this topic, my mom actually shared two stories with me. I think two short extracts that's related to this that I thought was quite nice and eye-opening. So basically the first story is about this person who wants to like, this is his goal. So like as a side hobby, his goal is fishing, and his goal is trying to catch a fish that weighs like over a kilo. But in that small pond, to find that specific type of fish that weighs over like a kilo is like really difficult. But he spends so much time trying to figure out what type of feed, like what type of tools he needs to like catch the fish, that it takes up all of his time, and all of his time is just used to like figure it out. And I guess from another person's point of view, they would say like, oh, why are you wasting all your time like looking at this? It's not even that important. But to him, that's what's important to him, and he's having fun doing it, so it doesn't matter what other people are saying, you know. And that
mhm,
can go the same with like other hobbies. Like they list out a few examples. For example, like taking photography of small insects, like staying in the bushes just to like capture that one moment when the insect mates. And it's just, or like looking at a flower that blooms and you want to catch that exact moment when it's in full bloom. And I think it's just a lot of these small hobbies that get overlooked, but for the person who's actively doing it, it just means so much to them that,
mhm.
you know, and that should be what's taking up your headspace. And the other extract is about like how like kind of entertainment companies that's doing these variety shows and like social media is like really rotting your brain. And the reason people use it is to like fill up time. It's not rotting your brain, sorry. It's about like taking up space, filling up the voids in your life where you don't have anything to do. And this is like the first thing that they turn to because it's easy access and they don't have to think about it. So in a way, it kind of like um what do you say, like it kind of slows down your thought process, and it's harder for you to think about things in a more original way when a problem is presented in front of you. So yeah, basically they're saying this is like human, what do you call it, human pacifiers. Is it the thing that you
Ooh,
give to babies, right? Yeah, they're
yeah.
like adult pacifiers to like fill up time and like stop them from thinking in a way. I guess it's kind of like
Mhm.
extreme views from the author, but I can see where it's coming from. And then I guess the point he makes is that um, the way to stop this from like happening to yourselves is like what you said, basically like finding good sources that is like that can help you with your thinking process, that's like very informative and valuable, like finding good podcasts and like books and like good literature. It's kind of like saying like finding someone who's good at mastering a language, and like once you master a language then you can like really help with your thought process. And I thought that was really good, you know, just to think about the fact that like thinking about what really takes up your headspace and like not focusing on external things that really doesn't matter in the end, like other people's validation and like labels, because ultimately you're the one who's living in your head. So it's really finding about what things you want to do that's worthwhile for you and takes up your mind space. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good
But
point.
I think like some a side point for that would be like also knowing your kind of personality and what you are drawn to. So for example, even though I want to be the kind of person who is obsessed with a small thing, I know that to some
Not
extent I
everyone.
can't.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I
I
get
have
it.
like ADHD in terms of like what I'm interested in. So when I'm interested in something, I'm super interested in it, but like only for a short while. Then I
Mm.
jump to the next thing. And I feel like that's also fine. Like as long as you feel like you're intellectually engaged as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think definitely, because I think with those two extracts, it's very like pinpoint. Like they have very
Mhm.
like strong views with what they're
Like
trying to say, and
obsessions.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's definitely about like what you're finding what you like. I mean, even for the two of us, like not everyone can relate to our experiences and like the things or like the advice and suggestions that we're giving. It's just like what we think could work. Like it doesn't have to be applied to everybody because everyone's so different anyways. So yeah, I think it's just finding something that intellectually challenges you, and you find a good valuable you find value in doing something that takes up your headspace and it's not something that vanishes really quickly, and you know it's not long term and sat,
Yeah.
satisfy you in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think another way that it would be valuable would be if you believe that it's for the good of humanity, or like you believe that you're helping other people. Because I
Mm.
think there are some studies to show that like the reason why people are happy is because like they basically help other people, like make other people's lives better, and that's how
Mm.
you become happy. So yeah, I think that's like quite a big point, but it's like quite it doesn't have to be so direct that like, oh, therefore I can only be happy if I donate money, then I would that's my hobby. But I think like as long as you have your own reasoning for why whatever you're doing is making the world like a better place in your opinion.
Yeah, I think the reason and like the starting point of why you're doing something is just the most important. Like it doesn't have to be like making the world a better place. Like I definitely agree with that. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't have to be so straightforward to the point of like I'm gonna start a charity to like solve world hunger and that's gonna make me feel happy. You know, it can just be very, very tiny. It could just be like learning to cook because I know it would make my friends and family happy, and this is something like they would like, and it it's a way to bring friends and family together and like help us feel more connected. I think that's already like a really good starting point, you know, like for like you're kind of influencing the people around you already. It's not that grand, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, I think starting small and then just finding what you like basically it's just focusing on things that are like more important than other people's validation and the labels and the grades you get from that. I think it's good. Like just I think removing the focus on like being perfect and just being human. Is that a good term to say?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so.
Yeah. Because that's like perfect. Yeah. I guess in a way to conclude, it's just mostly about like I think for us and a lot of people who are probably studying who identify as perfectionists, you don't have to identify as perfectionists. It's just people who really want to do well and like trying really hard. I think we always constantly feel the need to do well, like from a lot of origins. Like with us, it's like probably Asian culture with rankings and like our duty as a student and a kid. But like as we grow old, the boundaries and like measurements to do well like blurs so much because essentially there's no grade boundaries in life anymore, and there's no one there to like mark your performance. It's just you and yourself. So in a sense, you're the only person who knows in most detail what you're doing. So I guess to summarize like alternatives to like try and focus so hard on the rat race, it's just about like enjoying the process, acknowledging the fact that acknowledging the way that you talk to yourself if that influence how you behave and how you do your work, and also just like being really mindful of like what takes up your mind space, your head space, and like you know is the thing that's taking up your mind space really that worthwhile to be looking at, and really focusing on you know doing something that's making the world or people around you having a better time, making the world a better place, and then just finding really good reasons of why you're doing what you're doing, and not that it's not for other people's validation, or it's not for the grades, or it's not for the image you want to create when you go up to someone and say this is me and this is the list of achievements I have, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
Yeah, do you have anything to add?
I no, I think we covered most of it. I think it's also like I think something to add is that like it's very important. I realize now as I grow up that I don't have to change the world or be super famous to be happy.
Mm.
And sometimes like just influencing the people around me is like enough.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think yeah as I grow older I also realize that too, like no matter what you're gonna make an impact in some way no matter how small, and I think that's enough, you know.
Yeah, and just making sure that it's like a net good impact instead of like
Yeah.
a big impact.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That was a really good chat, and I think it's just really nice to talk to you and like relate to your experience and mine. It's just really nice to like I guess talk about our journeys and our findings along the way, since we're such perfectionists and like want to be high achievers. And yeah, I think at this point I just wish the both of us like good luck for next year for our final year in architecture, and I guess we can see how it turns out. And then once you finish, we can like relate back to this episode and see how we're doing mentally and physically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope this episode was interesting to our listeners, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.